Hey guys, so I'm gonna take you through the process and thoughts of upgrading my Bronco audio from the stock system through like a 4-channel system to a 7-channel system. So breaking out the front stage into the component speakers and the dash speakers into my mid-range, and then some coaxials in the back of the rig to fill everything in, and then adding a 10-inch sub as well to really get that bass in there. So I'll walk you through kind of my thoughts and processes at the end, and you'll see most of the steps on the way as I work on this and any challenges that I reached. Might be not an in-depth video on how to do, but at least you'll get to see like a kind of a high-level overview of what I did.
And it kind of already started here, but taking off the molly rack so I can access this side to get to where the amp is gonna go. When I take these off, I already sized up some boxes in there to make sure the amp fits. But then I'll also be putting a sub. I use an enclosure from Gear Shade. Luckily I don't have to take these off. But then gonna dynamat everything underneath here. Once I get all these off, I just gotta pull off all the fun stuff here, and then I'll have full access to that. Jack the clam up, pop the knees off the top. Just had to get enough clearance to get in there and to be able to unscrew these. Should be able to just disconnect that, and then I plug in my pods that I got, and then I don't have the speakers yet. I'm just kind of doing some stuff this weekend before I get it, and then finish up the main install later. Alright, to confirm that, yeah, there was 2 of these up on top. That's why I was struggling getting that off. I only felt one originally, but then just used my star drive, and then with a 1/4-inch wrench was able to get that off, so I didn't have to buy the special tool. It worked. You gotta lift the clam a couple inches off to give yourself enough room there. We'll get the other one off now. Alright, so what's going up on top is these SSD Works speaker pods. They're for 6.5 speakers. I'll be putting some coaxials in there. It seems like we have clearance, so now the next thing to do here is just to steal this bracket, put it onto here, and I don't think these will work, screws will work in there. I think they gave me some like self-tapping screws to take off here, so we'll have to find out here. We'll see how one hand works. Alright, so we're done. I think we're ready to put the pods up there. I put some dynamat in there to deaden that and be better for the speaker. And putting the other pod up there. No fitment issues there, so I'm happy with that. Alright, box is open. Six and a half, 1-inch tweeters, 3-inch mids, 8-channel amp, and 6.5 coaxials. Back. So I have to open up the kicker sub. What's up?
Alright, I'm kind of already got some stuff done. I've already taken off the speaker cover here so I can get to the 3-inch speakers here. Taken off the airbag cover, and then also taken off the grab handle over here to get access to the side of the dash, and working on getting this pulled off so we can mount a tweeter up here. I always seem to forget to start filming by the time I'm moving on to the next thing, so you always miss it. But removing the kick panel now. Okay, after some research, I guess the rest on the top comes off. And then there's some bolts underneath holding it on for the footrest. Alright, time to get the speaker. It's best to use the thin one up here. The 2 tabs in the back go like this against the mirror, so you don't want to flop up this way. You want to pull the back ones up from the side.
Alright, now to actually installing the speakers.
Alright, one thing bad about Musway, they didn't provide any mounting hardware, but they did give you this pod housing. Luckily, I had the right size screws to fit in there. I will say, once you put the 2 screws in there, I put Loctite on there and lock washers, because I don't want that to go anywhere. Feels pretty dang solid. Don't think that's going to be too intrusive on the dash, you facing it, but it is definitely bigger than what I was expecting, for sure.
Okay, for this next part of the install, I decided to start working on the wiring harness and running it in the car. Started off at the head unit and putting in that splice that they have there to connect between the factory amplifier and the head unit, and then sending those as input wires down to the amp. I really didn't have any particular order that I did the install, just kind of what caught my fancy at the time, which this connects to for the plug and play kit, the input wires that go back to your amp. And then this obviously goes into your radio, and I gotta look at where this one goes. Alright, so I popped down the glove box, and then we need to use a 7. Pop these off. So I guess, just so you guys can see, this and the one on the right is the one that pulls out. If I can get it to come out without breaking anything. Now, this is the female end, this is the male end, so this one goes into here. Male end, which is right where that was, but
question is, can I shove this under here? Yes. And then, can this go in and around here so I can feed these wires? Because what I want to do is run the power down the driver's side in the input speaker lines in the passenger side. Alright, it's getting late. I'm going to pull it in the shop here in a little bit to at least finish running these cords. Basically I had to pull this up just to get a little bit more room to make the connectors meet in an easy way. Now I'm going to put that back and then button this up, and then that should be good.
Alright, got carried away. Forgot to turn on the camera. Basically just remove this and then the plastic trim tabs along the kick panel and the passenger door, and the rear passenger door, and behind the seat belt. Just, that's a thick harness, so I figured it's just easier to remove it than trying to stuff it through. And then now I'm just removing the rear panel here. This is where the sub's gonna go. This one I've removed a few times, shouldn't be too bad. Let's disconnect this. This you won't have. I put that on there. Put that out of the way so I don't shut my door on it. There we go. That's kind of in the way. Don't really want to pull that off. Let me just pull this out of the way. Careful when you pull this out. There is a little connector here. Don't just yank. I don't know what that is too though. Got a module. It's just hanging there. You got your 12 volt. You gotta unplug here. Okay, well the trim is out now. There was something connected to this at some point, or it's just sitting there. But I don't see any loose wires, so that's interesting. Maybe it's kind of like the dummy sub that they have there. Just there. I threw these in previously when I was measuring. That's what it is. That's what that's connected to. Measuring out other amps that would work. So if this fits, that one goes, then this other one should as well. We checked the measurements. Somebody else shoved it in there as well. Tried a few different amp setups here. Alright, so I went ahead and traced out the amplifier, and then I was going to make some spots to put in to screw in the bracket that I'm making. But I might not get that fancy because I think I'll lose support by cutting out these indents, so it just might be an extra inch on top to get that extra support. So now I'm just going to go see if that fits in the spot where I think the amplifier should go.
Something I did off screen was I finished running the wiring harness on the passenger side down to the back where the amp will be going. see here that the wiring harness is already back here now.
Idea. Move that stuff out of the way. That would work just fine. But I think I'm just gonna make it simple and not have these little nodules out there for where I'm gonna screw in here. And then there's 5 different spots I'm screwing into. Since I'm not able to screw in over here, that should support the amplifier.
Okay, for this next part, just drilled some holes to put some thread inserts in here. Just make sure that you keep slowly stepping up the drill bit size and use good lubricant, because this is For this next part, I realized I was speaking with screws and spades in my mouth, so couldn't really understand me, but basically just connecting the component speakers and extending the component speaker wire because it was not long enough to run all the way down to the kick panel.
Alright, so wiring up the speakers in the kicker panel. This connector hooks up to the factory plug, and then with these there's instructions to cut the loop that's in them if you're trying to separate the kicker speaker with the dash speaker, which is what I'm trying to do here. And so white obviously negative and black, or sorry, white positive, black negative. 2 of these wires are now, since they're out of the loop, will feed the dash speakers on a separate channel, so I can tune them separately and not be tied to one. But again, I'm still tied to the tweeters, and the woofer of that speaker will obviously be on its own channel.
Alright, this next part is getting the dash speakers ready to be put in. So just cutting out the adapters right now so they fit the 3-inch. And then just putting the speakers into those adapters. Next we'll put some polyfill in where they go after putting some Dynamat in the bottom of it. And then I didn't capture putting the speakers actually in, but you get the idea. It's pretty straightforward. Just plug it in and screw them in.
Alright, button everything up. It's been a while actually since I checked in. I did a lot of things. Last time since I filmed, I obviously put the sub in, wired the sub. Really just kind of finishing touches here. Kind of somewhat tuned the amp. Kind of figured, as I suspected, I think I might have mentioned this in when I was recording this a day or so ago. Channel 1 and 2 needs to be switched with 3 and 4, just because those are my mid speakers. They shouldn't really have that high highs and lows, but they are technically a full range speaker. But I am experiencing some clipping with that, so hopefully that'll fix it. I talked to Joe from Musway, because I was worried that this amp was giving it too much power, and they said that they're giving those little speakers that are rated RMS for 60 watts up to 300 watts. So he's pretty confident that's not the issue. It's really just I'm trying to pass too high of highs in there and really need to have the band pass to be able to utilize that. Chased a few gremlins in the wiring. One of these plugs right here didn't have the pins pushed all the way in, and then also up in the dash, so I had to tear my dash apart again. Found that out by using the multimeter and kind of testing each one of these like plugs to see which ones had voltage. And so fix that, push those all the way through. Now I have power to all my speakers. That's it really. So I'm just waiting for a tool so I don't have to destroy this these connectors here. I'm gonna try to switch it up here with the push pin connectors and see if I can't swap out the channels.
Just wanted to add a couple extra thoughts that I didn't capture in this next section, but basically I think adding Dynamat wherever you can is pretty important, and then also polyfill is important. It's in the instructions for the sub box that Gearshade provides, but I definitely think adding in there helps make a more fuller sound coming out of the speakers. Another good note or pointers that Gearshade provided around their sub enclosures that they've learned recently is the mount for the top part. Make sure you add in Loctite for those screws, because the sub will eventually back those screws out through the vibration. And then also once you tighten down the sub, give it a day or two and then retorque those screws around the sub, just because the gasket's settled in and it has been crushed for a little bit. So I thought those were some good pointers as well.
Alright, so I've gotten my sound system done for a while now, and I thought I'd just kind of give you some overview and some final thoughts on it. It's raining now, so we'll get inside the vehicle, but I'm not probably going to do a sound test because it's only as good as the quality of the mic on my GoPro, so you're not really going to hear the difference, but I can do some like comparison thoughts on some of the other sound systems that I've done, and just some final overview thoughts of kind of the process and kind of what goes into it, and I'm actually, just how happy am I with the sound system. So it took a little longer than I thought. The kit that Joe sent me had most of the stuff that I needed. There's some hardware that was missing, and that was not necessarily due to Joe's fault. It's just Musway doesn't really provide the same amount of hardware that maybe Kicker would provide, and so I had to go, get some different screws and stuff like that, or buy some speaker protective guards and stuff like that. Not that big of an issue. I guess when tuning the amp, it was a little bit of a trial and error setting up the amp. This is Joe's first time kind of doing a system like this for a Bronco. Obviously he has a lot of experience in doing systems, but I guess with that amp and that kind of setup or configuration, it was just different than what he normally does. So one thing about the Musway amp 8100 is only 4 of the 8 channels have bandpass filters, and so basically had to rewire the channels 1 and 2 over to channels 3 and 4, which 3 and 4 had the bandpass filters for my dash speakers up here, because when I originally set it up, I only had the ability in channel 1 and 2 for high pass filter, which technically is a full range speaker, but it definitely had some challenges with that high pass, and it was a very bright sounding stage that was making the speaker clip. And so once I rewired that, it sounded much better, and I tuned it and took my time. I drove around a little bit without the panels out back there, so I can kind of just see how I like the sound and the filter. Unfortunately,
with these newer rigs, like you used to be able to do with the aftermarket head units, you could set your own equalizer. That's something I wish that you could do now, even like a Bluetooth or something like that. I guess the DSP amp, you would be able to do that if you had the little dongle to plug in. But we weren't sure about the size of that, if it would fit there. And maybe if Musway did develop a smaller amp that a little Bluetooth would work, that'd be great, because unfortunately I don't really want to go back there and take everything off from the muley panels to the siding and stuff like that to get to the amp. Other thoughts, I ended up putting my bass booster control knob down here. I'll show you a picture, I'll put it somewhere, but the knob, I guess it used to be a different form factor, and now it is, when you follow the instructions and take apart the knob, it doesn't have the threads anymore to tighten up the knob. So it's really just push pressure down here, because this can just pop off, right? And I don't really want to super glue it down there, but that is a option as well, and I'll put that back on later. It's something I wish they maybe would have kept the original knob that they had originally included in the package with the amp. I think that's a downgrade. But final kind of thoughts of how the sound system sounds. So I guess I've done this is maybe my third rig with a sound system in it, and the first time actually I think was my best sounding one. I had shallow subs in it, 2 12-inch subs in it, though I'm surprised that the performance of this kicker sub is really well. I think it almost competes to what I had in those 2 12-inch subs that I had in my truck, a 96 truck, where I also had tweeters up here that I put up in the pillar. I think they were a little bit smaller tweeters. I think they were a 3/4 inch tweeters at the time, but I had a Pioneer setup, so I had Pioneer 6x9s mounted in the center, and then also in the doors I had some 6.5 speakers as well. I can't quite remember the setup, but that thing sounded really good, and I attributed most of it sounding really well is because I had the tweeters and those 6x9s coaxials, and Pioneer, you know, it has always made pretty good speakers. I can't speak to the quality of them now, but this was early 2000s. That was a great sounding sound system. Then I had another one that I did for my Mustang, and I threw a lot of money into the subs in it, and that was honestly kind of a waste of money on that one. It didn't sound as good. I definitely had the bass, but I definitely would have done it differently. So knowing that, the way that I focused on this, I definitely put more money into my speakers and not so much my sub, and a good quality amp and speakers, especially the mid-range speakers here, to focus on that, and the tweeters were kind of my primary concern on there, and I'm actually quite happy with it. And you know, I tend to listen to my music 50% to almost 3/4 volume up, which is ideal. I'm not pushing the amp extremely hard. And then that kicker 10-inch RT comp, that does amazing. Very surprised at the performance. That's honestly the smallest sub I've had. I don't know if it's because I really took my time and sealed it up well, did infill, and then I don't know if the just how it's situated just works better, but it does. The constructions that they did at Shade Gear seems great. It's maybe the performance of 3D printing instead of old school sub enclosure boxes, but it performs really well. I did set my gains up a little higher on that probably than what was recommended, but I knew, like, I used a multimeter to check it. I knew I could just turn down my control knob on my sub, and I think, you know, I have decent hearing that I can hear when I'm over pushing or overdriving my sub, which shouldn't be an issue because the max power of my amp is under what the sub can take. So not peak, but the RMS, and so pretty safe there. Shouldn't have any issue there. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the sound quality there. You just got to be really careful with fine tuning on the dial. I think that's maybe another critique that I had on the amp, is the scale at the frequency pass doesn't seem to be linear as well. When I was kind of monitoring, now I was using my phone to measure the frequencies, but adjusting that, it doesn't seem to be linear. So if I like divided 500 by into quarters or something like that, it seems to be more of an exponential pass on that, and so that was a critique. Also doing the way that Joe had the pin connectors, it's either you plug them all in or you have nothing to test. So when I was doing my multimeter, I had everything unplugged and I could judge it that way, but I couldn't individually listen to each channel frequency. So I was kind of really doing it by ear and testing it. And honestly, with these 1-inch tweeters, they were quite powerful, and it was hard to filter that out when I was tuning it with my phone. That's one thing to consider. So I don't think I have it perfect, but I have it pretty good, considering that I couldn't individually tune each one. And at this point, having everything together, I don't really want to mess with it again unless I need to. The only other thought was the amp that did go there. I did drill a mount there, and the board that I put it on, it was a fit. It didn't really fit there. I honestly actually had to bend some sheet metal out of the way, which is fine. It's the sheet metal by the gas intake, and you obviously wouldn't see it. It's all hidden. The only time that you would notice is if you pull off that rear driver corner panel and take that amp out, you would kind of see that it's been pushed. And then honestly, I just put some sound deadening there, and so you can't even tell. I just shoved a 4x6 in there and kind of reefed on it a little bit to move it out of the way, and that gave me enough space to put that amp there. But at the risk of rambling on, I think, yeah, it is worth it. It's just how much money you want to spend on it. I think the way of Kicker, it would be probably a little bright in here, given that Kicker really only offers coaxials, while I have dedicated woofers for mid-ranges, and the component speakers really help bring up the level of your mids and highs, and then the woofers kind of more for fill-in. I noticed with the coaxials in the back, this is all preference, but I would tend to have that a little bit more of a filler, but it definitely, it is a little brighter, and it seems to bring the visualization of your soundstage kind of more about here instead of in front of you, I've noticed. And I could mess with that with my gains a little bit to focus a little less power up there and a little more power here in fading. The way that Joe wired it, I can't really adjust with the factory head unit where it is, because the input channels that he is using for everything is input channels 1 and 2, driving everything, and then that's the subs and the rears and stuff like that. And he did that because he did not know that I was going to use Forescan to adjust. So I guess if you do work with Joe, let him know that you are going to utilize forescan, so you have the full range of your head unit to adjust like that. Granted, it is limited. It would be nice if there was some kind of like aftermarket app that you could use within your Ford Sync to be able to control some of those EQ settings and stuff like that. But that's obviously a proprietary software, and they're not going to open that up for anybody, so that's just wishful thinking. But yeah, if you guys have any questions on the system, you know, just make a comment or message me. I'll try to get back to you and let you know what I did, or anything that I would change at the time, or if you need help tuning what I did with the amp. I know it seems straightforward, but you might have to trial and error to kind of figure out where exactly it should be. The speakers, again, I think they're a little underrated for their performance and how much wattage they can handle. I think they could be pushed a little bit more. Talking to, I think it's Steve at Musway, or no, Joe at Musway. These speakers can be pushed quite a bit, so that's another option for you guys. It seems to be great quality, and yeah, talk to you later.